Picture a construction crew in Mumbai tasked with building a bridge. They spent months pouring concrete and setting steel, but they never actually discussed what the finished bridge should look like or what weight it needed to hold. One group thinks it's for pedestrians, another thinks it's for heavy trucks, and the last group thinks it's a decorative walkway. When the project is finished, the bridge is technically complete, but it's completely unusable because no two people were building the same thing. This is exactly why we need acceptance criteria. Technically, acceptance criteria are the set of conditions that a work item must satisfy to be accepted by a user, customer, or other authorized person. In simple words, it is the definition of done. It is the invisible finish line that you draw before you ever pick up a tool. Without it, you are just running in a random direction, hoping you will find a goal. You have probably seen this in your own office, where a team delivers a report or a software feature, and the manager looks at it and says, "This isn't what I meant." That happens because there was no clear finish line. Acceptance criteria turn "I think this is done" into "I know this is done because it meets these specific rules." So now that we have mastered the core realization that acceptance criteria are the vital finish line for our work, you might be wondering how we keep these criteria from becoming a laundry list of impossible demands. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the balance of clarity and brevity. Think back to our Mumbai bridge. If the instructions say the bridge should be strong, that is useless. What does strong mean? Does it hold a bicycle, a car, a 10-ton truck? A disciplined Agile Scrum Master helps the team turn vague ideas into specific measurable conditions. We want testable criteria. A testable criterion is one where you can say yes or no without any room for debate. For example, the bridge must support a load of 15 tons is testable. The bridge must look nice is not. You have likely sat in meetings where people argued for hours about whether a task was finished because the goal was subjective. We want to eliminate that friction. By writing criteria that focus on the what and how of the requirement, we remove the guesswork. We are not writing a novel here. We are writing a set of rules that act as a shared language between the person who wants the work and the person doing the work. If you can't verify it with a simple test, it isn't a good acceptance criterion. So now that we've mastered the importance of making our criteria specific and testable, you might be wondering how we ensure the user is actually the one defining these rules. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the power of the user-centric perspective. Let's go back to our bridge. Who is the best person to tell us if the bridge is done? It's the person who needs to drive a truck across it. In our daily professional work, we often make the mistake of defining acceptance criteria based on what is easiest for us to build, rather than what the user actually needs. We have to adopt a user-centric perspective. Formally, this means the criteria must be written from the viewpoint of the intended beneficiary of the work, ensuring the outcome satisfies their specific pain points. In simple terms, it means the user defines the value. If you are building a login screen for an app, the user doesn't care about the complex backend database code. They care that they can log in within 3 seconds and that their password is secure. When we write criteria, we use the user's voice to keep us honest. It stops us from gold plating the project with features that don't actually help anyone. It keeps the team grounded in the reality of the market, not just the fantasy of their own technical imagination. So, now that we've mastered the art of viewing our work through the user's eyes, you might be wondering how we keep these criteria manageable when a project becomes massive and complex. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the concept of refining and evolving our criteria over time. Imagine building that bridge in phases. At first, the goal is just to connect the two sides of the river. As the project progresses, we learn more about the traffic flow, the weather patterns, and the maintenance requirements. Our acceptance criteria shouldn't be carved into stone tablets on day one. They are a living document. Refinement is the ongoing process of updating and clarifying your acceptance criteria as you learn more about the solution. Think of it as a conversation that never really ends until the work is released. I have seen so many teams fail because they treated their initial requirements like a static rulebook that could never be touched. But in an agile world, we know that the more we build, the more we understand. If you discover that a certain criterion is no longer relevant, or if a new requirement emerges, you update the document. You keep the criteria fresh and aligned with the current reality. It's not about being indecisive, it's about being responsive to the knowledge we gain while we work. So now that we've mastered the strategy of keeping our criteria flexible and living, you might be wondering how we manage the inevitable conflict when stakeholders disagree on what the criteria should be. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the process of collaborative negotiation. Back at our bridge project, what if the local government wants a pedestrian path, but the shipping company wants the bridge to be higher to let tall ships pass underneath? Now we have a conflict. This is where collaborative negotiation comes in. Technically, this is the process of bringing all relevant stakeholders together to agree on a set of criteria that balances competing needs and constraints. In simple terms, it is the art of compromise. As a Scrum Master, you aren't just a scribe writing down rules, you are a facilitator. You get the people who want different things into the same room and you help them find the middle ground. You guide them to ask, what is the minimum requirement that satisfies both parties? This prevents the "I didn't ask for that" argument later. By negotiating early, you build buy-in. When people feel heard, they are much more willing to support the final decision. It turns a potential battleground into a cooperative partnership. So now that we've mastered the techniques of collaborative negotiation, you might be wondering how we actually know with 100% confidence that we have satisfied every single criterion. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the final verification and sign-off. Finally, the day arrives. The bridge is complete. The team walks across it with the stakeholders, checklist in hand, verifying every single acceptance criterion. Does it hold the weight? Yes. Is the pedestrian path safe? Yes. Is the clearance height sufficient for the ships? Yes. Verification is the systematic process of confirming that the completed work item satisfies every single one of the agreed upon acceptance criteria before it is officially closed. Put simply, it is the moment of truth. This is where you avoid the post-project regrets. You don't guess if you are done, you prove it. This rigorous final check creates a sense of closure for the team and a sense of security for the stakeholder. It transforms the final release into a celebration of success rather than a nervous leap of faith. We have walked through the definition, the specificity, the user perspective, the refinement, the negotiation, and the final verification. You now have a complete bulletproof system for setting the finish line. You are no longer just building things, you are delivering exactly what was promised every single time.